Dear Naruto Lemon fans, I'm thrilled to invite all of you to my Boosty channel, where you can enjoy exclusive Naruto Lemon scenes in a comfortable and supportive community. Choose from various subscription tiers, from Mini Lemon to God Lemon, and gain access to unique content tailored just for our fans. Plus, subscribers to over Naruto Lemon and God Lemon will receive special mentions in my videos. Support my channel and dive deeper into the world of Naruto today. Dare. How long had it been since her heart had hardened, coated in a thick crust of ice, her soul slowly dying, sinking into the depths of some kind of darkness? How long had it been since she could simply smile at a new day, instead of watching with emptiness in her eyes the new sunrise, bringing warmth and life in its wake? Life had become an endless series of gray days, quickly replacing one another, not giving her time to come to her senses, not allowing her to finally breathe freely. However, did this life ever ask anyone about their feelings? No, never. It simply presented them with a fait accompli, doing everything its own way. On the other hand, it seemed like it should be easier, but alas. No matter how much time passed, it never got any easier, unfortunately. Perhaps this was just another lesson from fate, something she couldn't understand? But she no longer wanted to understand them, had no intention of doing so, simply drifting with the current into the unknown. These less than rosy thoughts raced through the woman's mind as she ventured into the mirror to see her reflection, revealing just how much time had taken from her. Her once vivacious honey eyes had long since ceased to reveal any sign of the blonde's desire for life. The once confident gaze that had given not only her but others faith in the future now served as a shining example of how one could resign oneself to fate, surrendering to its will. She could have gone on and on about this list of her dubious accomplishments, her eyes catching the new gray lock of hair on her head with a strange amusement. Yes, time had been kind not only to her spirit but also to her body, and her undoubtedly powerful jutsu exacted an equally hefty toll, one she still has to pay without ceasing. But what difference did it make? When there was no reason to fight for even a single day of this life that had long since lost its zest for her. Just a moment, and the room was once again filled with the young girl who, with her mere presence, was capable of taking the breath away from men passing by, forcing them to succumb to something base, hidden in their hearts. Why did she always use henge? Was she afraid to see old age at its best? Perhaps, but that was far from the main reason. Ghosts of the past. Yes, it was they who prevented her from shedding her technique, sometimes preventing her from spending the night peacefully. It seemed like long-forgotten images of bygone years, which should have faded, been forgotten, and somewhere simply lost their former power, but things were far from so. As soon as she looked at her true self, uncloaked by the veil of technology, her heart began to skip beats, a growing panic deep within her consciousness, seemingly squeezing her very soul in a steel vice, as if savoring the range of emotions the woman was expressing. Of course, these were all just metaphors, but why did it all feel so real? She would never be able to find the answer to that question. And what happened to you, Tsunade, huh? She asked her reflection with a smirk, knowing the answer to her question perfectly well. However, the silence didn't require it, leaving her alone with herself. It was worth closing her eyes for a moment, as those moments began to emerge that she was ready to forget, even if it meant giving up her soul. Newbie. Her foolish younger brother, who instilled in the hearts of those around him light and hope that their world hadn't yet completely rotted, that there was a chance for salvation from this abyss. Sometimes too naive, but also not devoid of realism in the right situations and at the right time. Always so cheerful that his optimism literally oozed from him, infecting those around him. A will too strong for a child his age kept him from straying from the path he had chosen for himself, and believe me, it wasn't easy. Hokage. Yes, that's exactly what his brother always wanted to be, to protect those dear to him and his home village from all the threats born of their mad world. And their grandfathers were his ideal and a guide, one he tirelessly strived toward day after day, even when it was difficult. This will bring you good luck. The blonde showed the pendant her grandfather had once given her. Soon it would be on her brother's neck, just like a light kiss on his forehead. But reality turned out to be far harsher than she had previously imagined. She would experience this full flavor a little later, when Orochimaru, with emotions still unclear to her, came to her to deliver some news. Unfortunately, she would quickly learn what the snake Sannin had wanted to tell her. And this knowledge would cause a part of her to die forever, accompanied by a loud scream from her mistress that seemed to echo throughout Konoha. Looking at what had once been her brother was hard, no, practically impossible, but she couldn't look away. Whether it was because of the tears that blurred them, or because of the weakness in her body that prevented her from even standing up straight, she didn't know, and she didn't want to know. After all, it didn't matter at all. That evening, Tsunade Senju died for the first time. But she was saved from falling into the depths of despair by the man who quickly took a special place in her heart, led there by a feeling called love, a feeling too strong, wasn't it? His support and love kept her from sinking too deeply into it all. His strong yet gentle arms seemed to lead her out of those dark corridors, guiding her toward the light, where he himself was waiting for her with a gentle smile. And she gave herself to him completely and without hesitation, basking in his rays as if he himself were the sun. How many heartwarming memories did she have with him? The first date, the first kiss, which seemed to knock the wind out of her body, but at the same time gave her a wave of the most unforgettable feelings and emotions that would forever be etched into her heart and memory, preventing her from breaking completely in the most difficult times. She was inspired by the fact that her guardian angel was always by her side, his invisible hand never allowing her to fall. And this time, she herself would not allow that to happen, protecting her happiness. How naive she had been then. Kato also wanted to become Hokage, though she no longer approved of it as strongly. She supported him in his aspirations, once again gifting him her good luck pendant, though it again failed. But apparently this time fate wanted to torment her even more than the last time, forcing her to watch her beloved slowly die in her arms, choking on his own blood. No, 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 don't you dare die. Can you hear me? Senju screamed, trying to stop the bleeding and heal the boy's wounds, but nothing worked, which made her panic even more. Stop it, Tsuna, we both know there's no help for me now, the boy said with difficulty, looking up at the sky, even though that was difficult for him. There's so much I haven't done, so much I haven't told you, he whispered further, his voice growing quieter and the screams of one girl growing louder. And then his last breath escaped his lips, and Senju's pitiful, pain-filled cry echoed across the clearing. Once again, fate had taken everything from her. Then Tsunade Senju died a second time. Jiraiya. The last bright spot in her life was her teammate, who tried to help her in her situation, although with little success, but even so, she will be grateful to him for the rest of her life. She remembers their first meeting, how she knew even then that he would always be a nuisance, the pervert, and it turns out she was right, wasn't she? They've been through so much together, survived so much, it's impossible to count. War, missions, just plain peaceful life. Of course, that gray-haired idiot always managed to get on her nerves, for which he pays with his perpetually beaten body, later spending time in the hospital. But on the other hand, these were all minor details, because she knew what kind of person he really was. And there was nothing to be disappointed about. Yes, he looked like a fool, but behind that mask hid a man strong in both strength and spirit, a role model for many, including her. His life hadn't been a bed of roses, but even so, he'd retained the light she'd long ago lost, killed. Maybe that's why she allowed herself to love again. Trusted him again, even though she couldn't fully express those feelings. And then, she simply didn't have the time. Bet me I won't come back, you always lose, ha ha ha, the man finished with a deep laugh, giving a thumbs up as he slowly walked away from the woman, whose tears were slowly tracing her beautiful face. And again, she was not destined to see him again, her soul and heart were torn to pieces, clearly enjoying the process. And again, a part of her was dying, it seemed, like her, but this time forever. But was it really true? No, the sun didn't allow her to go out completely, giving her a huge amount of its warmth and energy to keep this spark of life alive, even though she didn't yet know it. And now she faced what was probably the most difficult task of her life, informing Naruto of Jiraiya's death. She knew well how important her comrade was to him, just as he was to him. Naruto saw him as the father he'd never known, and Jiraiya as his grandson, if not the son he'd never had. Their bond was very strong, though you couldn't tell it just by looking at them. And now she had to break Uzumaki, even if she never wanted to. Wow, their first meeting immediately came to mind, how she saw in the boy shadows of the long-lost Dan and Nawaki, which had definitely made her believe in Konoha and the Hokage for the last time. Much water had flowed under the bridge since then, and now before her stood not that brat, but a young man whose blue eyes radiated a certain strength and confidence that not every veteran shinobi possessed. However, his cool image was spoiled by his perpetual goofy grin. A student had certainly taken after the teacher, but this idol was interrupted by a toad. "Are you Jirai-chan's student?" The toad's question was met with a curt nod, but it was clear the boy didn't understand what was happening. But the toad's next words would answer all the questions. "Jiraiya-chan fell in battle," the toad sage said calmly, while a shadow of pain briefly crossed her face, but she quickly regained her composure to see the boy's reaction. "Is this some kind of joke?" His composure was clearly rapidly fading, and the negative answer to his question only added fuel to the fire. And again, pain flashed in her gaze, and then shock, when she began to see the transformation of the guy, who began to press on the office with the power of the fox sleeping in it. "Who?" the blonde practically growled, raising his animal eyes to them, making everyone shudder. "Pain. I'll destroy him personally," the blonde said curtly, then simply ripping the door off its hinges and disappearing into the residence's corridors. "Maybe we should stop him," one of the ANBU asked her. "No, he needs to be alone. Besides, you can't handle him." The following days dragged on, and there was no news from Naruto. A deep anxiety began to overwhelm her, preventing her from working calmly. Naruto was the last thing that truly connected her to this world. And she couldn't lose him just because he'd done something stupid in the heat of the moment. Just as she was about to send the ANBU after him, the object of her thoughts appeared in her office. The boy seemed to have aged many years, and his eyes, which had once shone brighter than the stars, now seemed barely alive. With a curt command, he left them alone. "NAR," but she was interrupted. "Just listen to me, tsunade." For the first time, his usual, bachan voice, which made her boil, was absent, sending a slight shudder through her body. She couldn't yet understand why. "I'll be training on Mount Mayaboku for a while. I need the strength they can give me. I must avenge Jiraiya, for I simply cannot contain this rage, this flame, no matter how hard I try," he began. "I will fight pain alone, because no one else will be able to defeat him. I will protect Konoha, just like Jiraiya, the third man, and my father did." He again cut her off, raising his hand. "I know who my parents are. And I won't change my mind. I won't put Konoha and my friends in danger, and I'll never put you in danger, tsunade." And again, a shiver ran through her body from the way he emphasized her name. But why? "Over the past couple of days, I've thought about a lot. Rethought some things, and thrown off a certain veil from myself that previously prevented me from thinking clearly. I am the student of the legendary Sannin of Konoha. I will continue his aspirations and dreams, though it seems I share something else as well." A slight smile graced his face as he rested his hands on the table and began to slowly lean toward her, bringing his face close to hers and stopping when their lips were dangerously close. "Love for you," he whispered quietly into her lips, not realizing how a powerful wave of a cocktail of different feelings passed through the body of the last of the senju, like a powerful river, sweeping away all obstacles on its way to her heart. "Boy," she thought as she tried to stop her hands from shaking. But why was she so worried? Why did his words have such an effect on her? She couldn't possibly feel anything for him, could she? Right? But lying to yourself is really bad, isn't it? But when? How? It must be that legendary love at first sight. When I saw you for the first time, I felt a wave of strange feelings that weren't clear to me then. And your beauty? Even I was struck by it then. Your kiss on the forehead? I remember it so well, as if it were yesterday. You are amazing, Tsunade, so amazing that I can't find the right words. Strong, and I'm not talking about your strength as a shinobi. Beauty that has no equal, but then, the body is not as important as the soul that hides within it. His quiet voice seemed like thunder to her now, only her pounding heart could be louder. I admired you, I've desired you for a very long time, but I was held back by our age difference, and even more so by Jiraiya, whose love for you was undeniable. I always believed in my teacher, I knew that one day he would be able to win your heart, if he hadn't already. And his eyes the color of the sky. How hard it is to tear yourself away from them. That's why I let go, I locked it all away. But now I understand that in the shinobi world, age is just a number, and Jiraiya wouldn't want you and me to be alone. Yes, he clearly curses me there, but he's also proud of me, blessing us. That's why I want to tell you. I love you, Tsuna. And again that tone. Even if you refuse me now, I will continue to love you, he laughed, while she was speechless. And now I will do what I have long desired. A moment and their lips intertwine in a tender dance that was full of their feelings. It felt like a supernova had exploded in his head, while warmth spread through his body, reaching the furthest corners. But due to lack of air, he had to tear himself away from those sweet lips. And then he rested his forehead against hers, looking into her eyes. I'll be back, I promise. I'll always be there and protect you. And you know Naruto Uzumaki never breaks his promises. And then he slowly pulled away, turning towards the exit. And then another shock came when she saw two transparent silhouettes behind him. Jiraiya and Dan, smiling at her as if approvingly, as if happy for her in that moment, and then just as quietly disappearing. But the blonde was no longer in the room, and her heart sank painfully again. But she knew he would return, he had promised. And after some time, the legendary battle between the god Amekagure and Naruto Uzumaki, the man who decided to challenge the god, resonated across the world. There were almost no witnesses to the battle other than the inhabitants of AIM, only a couple of small toads could convey information, but even they couldn't learn everything. And the more time passed, the more panic began to grip Senju's heart. Unable to contain this heavy wave, she paced back and forth across the office. And then a shinobi burst into the office. Tsunade-sama, Naruto Uzumaki has returned, but he's in very serious condition. The ninja didn't have time to finish, as the Hokage had vanished without a trace. But it's not surprising. Now the woman was racing at top speed toward the hospital, getting there quickly. Now she was in the operating room, watching in horror the blonde man's mangled body on the table while the doctors fussed over him, fighting for his life. Even though she desperately wanted to leave him. After the operation was over, the boy never regained consciousness, which drove the woman to a state of considerable despair. You promised me. You promised me you'd come back alive. Do you remember that? What will I do if I lose you too? I don't want to live in this world if it takes away the people I love every time. She burst into tears, finally breaking down and crying. For what? What did she do wrong? That life was punishing her so? Where did she go wrong? All these questions remained unanswered as she slowly began to sink into an abyss from which she would never be able to escape. In fact, there would be no point in leaving. But all these thoughts were interrupted by the light touch of fingers on her cheek. "Ts Tsuna," the guy croaked, barely keeping his hand raised. The woman immediately jumped up, summoning a crowd of Irionans with her mighty scream while she examined him herself. "Naruto, don't move. Does something hurt?" She began fussing around the boy, accompanied by his quiet laughter, which would be interrupted when he yelped in pain. Everything is fine, relative to how it can be in this situation, and again that smile. I promised to come back alive. You didn't believe in me, and she can't help but smile. I won, as I promised, by coming back. And now. He slowly rose to run his fingers through her hair, tilting her toward him. I will always be there, my Heim. And then another kiss, creating the strongest union of two hearts.